Hello, guys.
Hi, hello.
Good evening, good afternoon. Let's wait maybe 1 more minute to make sure that all the people who wanted to attend to the webinar are together with us. Uh, yeah, and thank you for being on time. Okay, you can see that people are still joining. So let's maybe wait another 30 seconds and we can start then. Okay, Michał, what do you think? I believe we can already start, right?
Yes, I think I agree. So we will not wait for the rest. So at least.
Yeah. So officially, hello and welcome to our webinar.
Yeah, welcome. As Mati said, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to wherever you are. So we are very happy that you wanted to participate in our webinar and spend the next hour together with us.
Yeah. Before we start, yeah, can you just confirm that you can hear us loud and clear? So if someone could type on the chat whether you can hear us, that would be good. Okay, thank you, Torsten.
Great.
Okay, so yeah, we hope that we will spend really great time together. But before we start, let's quickly look at the agenda, what we have prepared for you. So first of all, we will tell and describe a little bit about ourselves so that you know who's sitting in the front of the monitors. Then we will go to the webinar main goal, and we will slightly move to the most common challenges in the SAP S/4HANA conversion projects. Then we will try to give you our share with you our experiences, give you maybe some hints what approaches we have taken, and then we will try also to show you how we solve them really in practice in the system. And yeah, at the end of the meeting we will have a Q&A session. So if you will have any single question, please make sure that you ask it. We will probably not be responding to your questions at the during the time of the webinar, but we will address them at the end. My name is Mateusz Nowak. You can call me Matt, and I'm SAP integration expert. I'm also author of the SAP Press book about monitoring and error handling in AF, and I'm also Open SAP trainer.
Yeah, and my name is Michał Ibrom. I'm also an SAP integration expert and ABAP developer. And yeah, during several years of my experience with SAP, I took part in different SAP projects, so mainly SAP S4HANA implementations, both in the role of a developer as well as test expert. And yeah, thanks to this, I think that I was able to acquire a little bit more holistic view on different aspects of SAP S4HANA conversions. Yeah, and today, together with Matt, we will try to shed some light on the biggest challenges that we faced in our project so far, with a special focus on companies from retail and FMCG. So, yeah, fast-moving consumer goods industries, as we are currently involved in SAP S4HANA conversion projects for some of the largest companies operating in these areas. And then we will, of course, also present some of the solutions and tips based on real business cases from our clients. But yeah, maybe before we move on to the main part of today's webinar, we would like to ask you a short question to know what type of projects you're currently dealing with. So let me share with you a short survey. Okay, you should be able to see the survey now. So please choose one of the options from the list. So if your project is a greenfield, brownfield, or maybe a bluefield project. And yeah, maybe in the meantime, I can just briefly say that the greenfield means a completely new implementation of an SAP S/4HANA system, so starting from scratch. Then the brownfield approach consists of a conversion or upgrade of the existing system. So for instance, from SAP ECC into SAP S/4HANA. And finally, the bluefield is a combination of both brownfield and greenfield, where we are, for example, converting an empty system and then we are doing subsequent migration of data. Okay, so it looks like we are getting your votes already. So we will give you some more seconds to vote, and
I'm
then
really curious what will be the outcome, because on the first session that we have today, the winner was Brownfield, and then on the second place, Greenfield and Bluefield were equally on the same level. But now it looks a little bit different, yeah? Oh,
yeah,
actually.
we will see. Okay, so we will give you some last seconds and then we will check the results. Okay, so I think we will finish already the survey.
Mhm.
So I'll end the voting, and yeah, as we can see, actually the greenfield and brownfield has equal number of votes. So it means that those two types are probably the most common and most popular type in your project at this moment. So yeah, thank you for all your votes. And yeah, now let's go back to the presentation.
Mhm. Yes. So um, I believe that you can really agree with us that SAP S/4HANA conversion projects, they are really challenging, and mostly they are challenging because of the fact that this is really technically driven nature of the conversion, right? So of course, for each type of the migration, so bluefield, greenfield, and then brownfield, there are some specific challenges. But today we will try to focus on the most common challenges that you may encounter or you have already encountered in your S4HANA migration project, regardless of the type of the conversion that you have. And Michał, I believe that you can also agree with me that the biggest concern of our customers, especially the retail and FMCG companies, is that during S4HANA migration, the biggest concern is to make sure that they can really continue the business with all their partners, customers, vendors in exactly the same way as they did before the migration. And can you shed some light on the details? What's really so challenging there?
Yeah, sure, Matt. That's a very good point, I think. So in general, the integration with a significant number of connected applications is one of the biggest and, in my opinion, most common challenges. So as we know, the SAP system we implement is usually only a piece of a larger puzzle of various IT systems integrated with each other. Of course, the infrastructure of such ecosystems is dependent on many different factors, but at least from my experience, I can say that the complexity and really huge number of connected legacy systems is especially visible in retail and the FMCG industry, where there is a constant need to exchange data with some external applications. So, for instance, to send and receive orders from different vendors, perform various settlements, and simply do the business with the customers connected with our SAP system. And this is challenging in I think almost every type of SAP S/4HANA project. So no matter whether it is a greenfield implementation where we build the whole business flows from scratch, or for example a brownfield where we change the business process only inside the SAP system, because in each case we need to make sure that the third party applications integrated with our SAP system will act in exactly same way like before the migration. So it means, really shortly speaking, if inputs and outputs remain unchanged.
So we can say that in this context, the proper testing of the integration between the S4HANA system with all the external world is really essential to ensure business continuity, right? And what options do we have here?
Yeah, that's right. So I would say that I see two options here. So maybe the first, let's say, more classic approach, would be to just contact our system partners and ask them for support. So for instance, to send some test data to our SAP system, or we can ask them to check whether message we sent from our system reached their application properly. And while such a solution may work in some individual cases, when we consider a significant number of cases, just like it's, for example, in my current project, we must use more scalable solutions. And maybe what's maybe even more important, we need to eliminate the dependence on support from external resources. And this is where option number 2 comes in, where the virtualization is the key. Uh, and this is a solution where we can virtualize the service of every dependent system to produce interdependent messages, and thus we can easily validate and make sure that the features and any flows we implement in our S4 system, we can make sure that those features are fine just by simulating the operation of the third-party systems, thanks to which we can test the business processes almost end to end without actually involving the third parties. And the virtualization is also helpful in the context of another challenge I faced at one of my current clients, which is the fact that the SAP implementation project is separated from other ongoing projects and organizations at the company. And this results in our company, that is in our team, the SAP team having different priorities and goals than other teams. So for instance, those managing legacy systems. And such a situation, of course, does not facilitate the testing of the SAP S/4HANA system we implement. But as already mentioned, with the help of virtualization, we can easily deal with this issue and test interfaces connecting us with partner systems, regardless of their availability and task or projects our partners are currently working on. But this, however, I think brings us to the next aspect of actually managing a quite large number of such interfaces. So maybe can you tell us what might be challenging in this topic, Matt?
Yeah. So as Michał already described, the most crucial for all the retail and FMCG companies during the S/4HANA migration is really to keep the business running with all the vendors, partners, legacy systems, connected applications, right? And the nature of such companies, yeah, retail and FMCG companies, is that they have like hundreds of such partners with whom they really exchange the messages via some specific interfaces. So without a hesitation, we can say that the number of such interfaces it's even multiplied. Yeah, so we all of those interfaces can be counted in thousands. And if we want to make sure that all of those interfaces are working in the same way after the migration as before migration, we of course have to test all of them. And as you may probably guess, yeah, it's not really enough to have just one test case per specific interface, because you have to collect different business variations that are sending with those interface messages. You have different mappings in your CPI or PO system, right? So it's not as straightforward. And at my current customer, who's one of the most famous FMCG companies in the US, we decided to really split this process. So at the very beginning, just to start, we collect at least one message per the specific interface. Then we increase this testing library, so we test and we save some messages per specific operation mapping in PO or by specific mapping in CPI. And then at the end, we also aim to have really the whole matrix of variations. Yes, so we have the message per specific sender, receiver, mapping, and also the receiving receiving or sender partner. So thanks to this, we can really make sure that we are collecting all of the test cases. So of course, I would say that it's really impossible to collect all of those test cases, all of those messages manually, and then even compare them, right? So we are using a tool that automates the test case collection based on some predefined conditions, and then automatically, once the new S4HANA system is available, the comparison of the messages and of the backend documents like sales orders is being compared automatically. And of course, the test case collection can be done either from the production environment or the quality boxes. It's really up to the customers, up to the customer, what will be the choice. And the good thing is that exactly the same approach can be used for both simple and complex interfaces.
Well, so if I may interrupt, so it's very interesting what you just said, but I think if we are speaking about the complexity, I think we cannot forget about some dependencies between the interfaces. So why this is so important in your opinion?
Yeah, you're right, and I believe this is one of the most common thing that is really forgot during the S4HANA migration project, right? Because let's say that you have to adapt a specific piece of code, let's say a method on the ABAP layer, just to be in sync with the S4HANA guidelines and good practices. Yeah. So let's say that you are adjusting a select statement and you are just replacing the for all entries, very technically speaking. Yeah. So the method that you are changing, that is used in four different places, let's say, for four different and four separate interfaces, really brings you to the fact that you have to test your change for all those four interfaces on the S4 ABAP layer, right? So it also means that, I mean, one change that you do affects all of those four interfaces. And in this case, even if you migrate one interface and you even successfully test one interface, you still have to test the other three. But what is even more, when you migrate a second interface and you really do again the testing, and the testing for the second interface is successfully, then you shouldn't forget about testing again the first interface, right, that you migrated before, because maybe by doing some specific changes, you broke something for the first interface, right? And our customers take the advantage of continuous testing and the regression testing to accomplish this task. And um, I can again say that manually, it's nearly impossible to ensure that you always test all the interface or all the interfaces, and secondly, that you test all the dependencies really massively. And I believe that you can admit that usually the big FMCG and the retail companies, they have, first of all, quite an impressive number of such interfaces, but secondly also such quite impressive number of such dependencies between them, right? And sometimes this is also interesting, that sometimes even the interfaces owners don't realize about those dependencies. So what we usually do in such situation is to take the approach to test all of the test automatically and even in the background for all the interfaces migrated so far. So let's say once you migrate a new interface, you just add the specific test cases for this interface to the testing library. And when you migrate another interface, you continuously add some new test cases to this library, and you always execute all the test cases together for all the newly migrated interfaces and the ones that you migrated before, right? So thanks to this, you can make sure that you always test the whole box, right? And of course, this is really nice to hear all of that in theory, but no worries, we will try to show you that exactly in the system, and in practice how we follow this approach in practice. Yeah. But independent testing of the interfaces and even the dependencies between them is really just a one thing, but um, there is also a topic where the whole business processes can be tested, right? And Michał, I guess this is something that you successfully done with your last customer, yeah? So can you tell a little bit more about the business processes testing?
Yeah, that's true, of course. So, yeah, I would say that, yeah, in order to test the whole business scenarios, yeah, first of all, we need to connect the proper interfaces corresponding to each part of the whole process. So, for instance, if we would like to test an order to cash process, then firstly, we would need to create a sales order. Then in the next step, we will create a delivery. And finally, we will generate, for instance, a billing document. And this is, of course, a very simplified example. But what I wanted to say is that each of these steps can be mapped into a single test case. And then by combining these test cases together, we can test the full line of business. So the whole scenario end to end. However, it's also important to have the relevant data to validate such business scenarios. So what we often do, we take the data from production, like Matti already mentioned. So from a real usage of this process, and then using this production data, we can perform the testing that is repeat the flow on any other system. So for example, on a development or on a test system. And in addition, we can even automate the testing of such scenarios and schedule periodic execution, for example, every day or every night. And in case of any issues, we will be able to discover and fix them right away, which in my opinion is a really great value and support in the context of ensuring business continuity. But making sure that our business integration works properly is, I think, very, very crucial in the case of brownfield or bluefield projects as well, where beyond upgrading one system to a newer version, often also a consolidation of several existing SAP systems into one newer SAP S/4HANA is performed. And from what I know, that's the case in your current project, Matt. So how do you deal with this challenge?
Yeah, so I think that before I will answer to the question, we need to also make a statement that sometimes SAP landscape of the FMCG and the retail companies can be really be like a monsters. Yeah, so they can be really very very large, and some of the companies decide to simplify and reduce some costs by consolidating several ECC boxes into one SAP S/4HANA box, right? So on the slide, you can see, for instance, three productive SAP ECC boxes that will be consolidated into one SAP S/4HANA box. And this is natural that this makes the whole development process and of course also the testing process even more complex, because all the additional routings and mappings in the CPI and PO side have to be done. And in addition, if you have IDOC interfaces, you also have to configure the ALE, and all of that also have to be tested really, really extensively. And the approach that we have to take is really very similar to the standard SAP S/4HANA testing approach. So, as Michał mentioned before, yeah, we have to collect messages sent and received from all those partners that are connected with all the old ECC boxes. So, let's say, let's stay to the example that we can see on the slide. Yeah, so it would mean that you have to collect the messages with also the business documents from all those three ECC boxes. And when your SAP S/4HANA system is ready, or let's say when your specific interface or specific flow is already available in S4, you just run and execute all of those messages in the new box, and you also validate everything. But what here we have to mention, yeah, that again this have to be done really automatically, right? Because it would be really really hard to um, uh, do this manually. As yeah, let's imagine that you have like the like the inbound flow, um, where the message was sent in the past into, let's say, box ECC box number 2, right? So now, usually in CPI or PO side or any other middleware, you need to make sure that in your testing environment you do a proper routing between those messages. So you can either extend the receiver determination rules, or you can just duplicate the ICO by just changing the party name and the business component name, right? But it also means that during the testing, you also have to adjust either the message headers of those previously collected test cases, right? Or even the content of the payload, to make sure that based on your routing, the message is being routed to the specific box, in this case, SAP S4HANA box, right? So if you would like to do this manually, even for, I don't know, 10,000 messages, right, it would be it would take ages. So the approach that we take with the tool that helps you automate this process is to define the environment. So here we would uh, probably define 4 different environments, yeah, three environments for each of the ECC that will be migrated, and 1 environment for the new SAP S4HANA box. And then during the test cases execution, when we really try to test our new box, we will apply the specific mapping, yeah? And thanks to this, the routing could be done. So I believe that the challenges that we have discussed so far are really the challenges that you may really encounter in all types of projects. And we know that there are a lot of more challenges, but regardless of the type of the conversion that you take, yeah, and regardless of the approaches that you take, um, we can truly say that there is no way to do a successful SAP S4HANA migration without really full integration automation. So yeah, now we would like to ask you another question, just to make sure that you're not sleeping in front of the computers. What of the challenges that we just discussed some time back, do you think that would be the biggest struggle in your project? So give us a second, and yeah, now you can see the survey. So yeah, if you can, please just vote uh, for the most challenge that you just encountered, or you think that you will encounter.
Yeah, exactly. It would be nice to hear also some feedback from you if those challenges that we faced in our projects are similar to those that you're facing or you faced in the past. Because yeah, as Matt mentioned, so we know that those are only some specific challenges from our experience, but it may be many more different kind of different struggles and challenges. So that's why we would be happy to hear also yeah, what are yours. So we will give you some more seconds to choose one of the options. Then we will check the results.
Oh, that's interesting, because here we can see totally opposite results to what we have seen in the first session. Yeah.
Yeah, at least for now. Yeah, so last seconds and then we will finish the voting. Okay, so I think we can end the voting. Yeah, so it seems that for you the most yeah, common challenge is the complex interfaces and a lot of dependencies between them. So yeah, it's interesting that yeah, this one is the biggest one for you.
And frankly speaking, yeah, I think that this option also has I mean, in this option we have already included the number of all the connections, application, and so on, because it also means that the testing of the S4 conversion is really complex. Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I think now after describing our biggest challenges and finding out what yours are, or at least to hear what from our challenges are seems to similar to yours. So let us now briefly summarize how to solve them. And yeah, I think based on what we already said, it won't be a big surprise that the first and the fundamental solution is to automate as much as possible. And of course, I know that it's a quite general recommendation, so I would like to pay a special attention to the test automation, because at least based on our experience, optimization of this area seems to be the key during SAP S4HANA conversion projects. And by test automation, I mean mainly test data collection, test execution, and test results verification. And of course, I know not everything can be fully automated, and some things needs to be done manually. But anyway, when a huge number of integrated systems and tools interfaces comes into play, then I think it's really almost impossible to test it all manually. And the next important point is to define a proper approach for your testing. And I think it's all about just focusing on the elements that play a key role during the migration. So as I mentioned, just like in the previous point, I think it's the test automation. And a good example from this area might be testing of APIs, that is mainly different kinds of application programming interfaces, because that's something that both before and after the migration should remain unchanged. Because as already mentioned several times, the third party application still expect from us the same input and output. So maybe to sum it up in one sentence, defining approach means defining the testing strategy that fits first of all your project, and additionally to use tools that will help in its implementation.
Yeah, and the next point, that is virtualized legacy system, connected applications, and all the partners, EDA partners, and so on. This is, I think, the key to all of the other approaches and I think solutions, right? Because to really make sure that you can test your S4 independently of all those guys, so all of the legacy system partners and so on, you really have to make sure that that you virtualize them, so that you can send them messages to your SAP S4HANA box, pretending that it was sent that by the partner whenever you want. Yeah, without the ping pong conversations with all the testing departments from the other connected application or third party apps. You just want to test as much as many and whenever you want. Yeah, so this really makes your testing a little bit more I think safe, right? So that you can really do this continuously. And I believe that this brings us to another point, which is applying the regression and continuous testing, really just to make sure that you always test all of your interfaces on the PO, CPI, and also the S4 side, so that every single time when you migrate each interface, new piece of code, one by one, you always test everything just to make sure that what you have migrated 2 weeks ago is still working fine and as expected before the migration. Because for all your partners, right, the crucial point after your migration is that they really sometimes they even uh, don't know that you are doing the S4HANA migration. Yeah, but they really expect that what you send to them would be exactly the same message as you sent before the migration.
Yeah, and I think last but not least, in order to in general improve the testing process, we should use citizen automation tools. And yeah, you may ask, what do I mean by that? That's a good point. So it is all about to enable self-testing to as many people as possible, because in most projects the testing is done only by a small group of usually technical consultants. And however, those persons usually don't have the functional or some business knowledge about the processes they test. So that's why in my current project we implemented a solution which allows testing using Slack communicators. So I think Slack is one of the most popular communicators right now. And this tool is actually very simple because it can be used by everyone. And an additional bonus is that our, how we call it, Slack bot in our project can be accessed even via a mobile app on a smartphone. So based on my experience so far, I can really say that this tool is a real game changer when it comes to speeding up and making the testing as simple as possible. And actually, the Slackbot user just needs to select the test case, click on execute, and after a while, he gets a test result. So I think in this very simple way, almost everyone can be actively involved in testing the SAP S4HANA system. And that's all.
And just to maybe add one small point to that, yeah, when you collect all of your messages, so you really bring something that you already have in your system, yeah, either in the production or quality boxes. Once you do this, once you apply a specific approach and you automate the whole process, then you can really integrate that with any tool that you want that really allows to have such integration via APIs. Yeah, so exactly in the same way as at your project, how you integrated with the Slack bot. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
exactly.
yep, and again, I have to say the same sentence that everything sounds really great in theory, but it's better to see how it can be achieved in practice. And that's why we would like to show you how we are doing what we have so far discussed in this webinar, but how we are doing that in practice. And I believe that you've already noticed that together with Michał, we work for Int4. And Int4 is the company who specializes in SAP integration and SAP automation. And we are integration specialists by heart, and we really know all the good and bad things that can occur in the SAP integration projects, also in the SAP S4HANA migration projects. And for the last one, so for the S4 migration projects, we use Int4 IFTT to perform and to follow all the discussed approaches today. Yeah. And sometimes Int4 IFTT is the only tool that we use. And for some customers, we also integrate IFTT with Worksoft, ALM, or Tricentis, or as Michał mentioned, yeah, with Slackbot. And maybe just to give you the background, yeah, at the very beginning, Int4 FTT tool was really created only for our internal needs. Yeah, so we just wanted to make sure that what we do in the integration project is tested properly, and that we can really deliver projects faster, and at the same time that the customer can really lower the cost. And this is basically the way how Int4 IFTT was developed, and then it was commercialized. So before we will show you the stakes, yeah, so how exactly we use it, let me quickly describe some main features of IFTT. So I guess that you will not be surprised, yeah, if I will tell you that IFTT allows you to virtualize all of your customers, EDI partners, and connected applications, because this is really the crucial point in the API testing. Yeah, so you thanks to the virtualization, you can really test any number of messages, any scenarios, and you can test it, that is more important, independently of all your partners whenever you want. The next thing is that Int4 IFTT follows the test-driven development and the regression testing approach. So in the greenfield, but also in the bluefield implementations, when you really add some interfaces from scratch, or you really drastically adjust existing interfaces or existing code, IFTT can be used even in the development phase to make sure that development that you make is equal to the results that is expected, that your EDA partners, for instance, expects, right? So, as I already mentioned, um, for the S4HANA migration project, you have to ensure that all your partners receive exactly the same messages as before. So thanks to this, you really know what they expect. Yeah. So that's why it can be used also as a test driven development toolkit. But in addition to this, of course, continuous and regression testing is a must in a S4HANA migration project. And this is also covered by IFTT, so we can execute test cases, collect test cases, and run them really even in a background every single day. And as a first thing in the morning, you can just see what interfaces are still working fine, for which you have to do some adjustment, and so on and so on.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe just to give you a little bit more background on how our tool works. So on the slide right now, um, you can see that IFTT actually covers the testing of the business processes from the SAP backend till the middleware. So we can say that it can be divided into the two main blocks marked with blue frames on the slide, as you can see. And these are the already mentioned the transport layer testing. So everything what's related to the middleware, like SAP PO, SAP CPI, or even non-SAP solutions like for instance Boomi. And here we can test, for example, routings, mappings, lookups, and so on. So everything was related to the middleware. And then the second block is the functional testing. So that's a block where we are testing only the functionalities on the SAP backend. So for example, we are trying to invoke something and then make sure that it creates, for example, a master data object, maybe a sales order. But what's important, we can easily compare the objects created as part of testing using Int4 IFTT with the original reference object. And in this way, we can verify the results. And maybe another thing worth mentioning here is that Int4 IFTT can be integrated with other standard testing tools like SAP Solution Manager, Test Suite, Worksoft, and so on. But I think Matt already mentioned this point as well. But what I wanted to say at this point, that such synergy can really boost the testing to the next level, because we can actually get the best out of each of these tools.
Yeah, and I believe that those will be two last slides before Michał will show you everything in practice, how exactly we are solving it. Yeah, but we'd like to also show you something on a more technical level, so that you are aware how how IFTT can really visualize all of the EDA partners and legacy systems. Yeah. So I would say maybe let's stick to the example that we have already discussed. Yeah. So the sales order interface. So let's say that your EDI partner sends you the EDI message, right? So the message is received in your SAP environment, and as a first thing, it's usually received in the CPI or PO, where, as Michał mentioned, yeah, all the mappings, all the logic there happens, and it results as the output message. So probably in the EDI scenario, yeah, the input message will be really EDI flat file that is then converted to the EDI XML, that is then converted to the IDOC, let's say, yeah. So the second message that you can see here, yeah, between the second and the third box, this is really something after all your mappings in your middleware, and then the, I would say, most important thing in the project as for HANA migration, yeah, is the final business document that is being created with this interface message. So in this case, it will be the sales order. So this input message sent from your partner, the output message after the logic done in the middleware, plus the sales order document. I mean, all of those things creates a test case, right? So really the I would say fantastic thing is that you don't have to create something from the cosmos. Yeah, so you really can use the interface messages and the business documents that you already have in your ECC environment, just to make sure that later on you can use them when your S4HANA system is available. Yeah, so once you have such test cases available, then IFTT, as we mentioned, yeah, virtualizes the EDI partner. So the same input message is being sent to the CPR or PO box. We expect that exactly the same output message will be available after the middleware mapping. And at the end, the sales order on the new S4HANA box will be created. And as the last step, IFTT really compares the sales order from your old ECC to the sales order that is created in the new S4 HANA box. And really, in the past, this kind of comparisons and the test case execution, yeah, was really a tedious task. So you have to do everything manually, and now you click just 2-3 buttons and that's it. Yeah, but I will not spoil it. So Michał, yeah, let's go to the IFTT in the system. Yeah.
Yes, I think we talked enough about the theory. Now let's finally go to the practice part, and I will show you how we use the tool in our current projects in a real cases. So let me share my screen right now. Okay, you should be able to see my screen right now. So yeah, in order to show you a demo, first of all, I need to log on to the SAP system. And you may ask why actually I'm doing this. So that's a good point actually. So maybe at this point it's worth mentioning that Int4 IFTT is a certified SAP add-on that can be installed on any ABAP-based system. So in our case, it would be the SAP Solution Manager, but as I said, it could be actually any ABAP-based system. And therefore, also no additional costs are required for installing IFTT, such like, I don't know, installing and special hardware and so on. So I think it's a really nice point. Yeah, so let me just log into the system, my username and the password. Okay, so now as you can see, I've entered the SAP Solution Manager system, and now I will open the most important IFTT transaction, so the so-called IFTT cockpit. So double click on the T code, and as you can see, now we are inside the IFTT test cockpit. And yeah, the layout looks, I think, quite standard to other SAP solutions. So in general, the cockpit consists of two main windows. So in the upper part, so in the upper window, you can see a list of folders, and of course inside these folders we can create subfolders, but in general it means that inside these folders we can create several test cases. So for instance, if I will select inside the company one, for example, the sales order testing, so if I will select this folder, then you can see that there below appears two test cases that are created inside this folder. So that's in general how it looks like. Of course, we have here also a standard SAP menu with some buttons that we can use to navigate through the tool, delete and create folders, test cases, and so on. But I think for now it's not relevant. But yeah, probably most interesting would be to just create a test case from scratch. So to do it, I would need to switch from display mode to change mode. So I'll click this button here, the second one. And as you can see, we are now in change mode. And now to create a test case, I just need to click on this button, so this plus icon. We append a new row, and now to create a new test case, we need to fill some basic information. First of all, the test case description. It could be actually any description, but yeah, I will use maybe just test case. Then in the next column, the interface type, we need to choose the type of the interface that we actually want to test. So if I will click on this button, we get a pop-up, and inside this pop-up you can see a quite long list of different interfaces types. And here we need to choose the interface type that we would like to test. As you can see, we've got here some SAP PI interfaces, some IDOC types, some SAP CPI interfaces, and many others. But yeah, for our case, let's choose the first one. So that would be the SAP PI end-to-end inbound. So double click. And then in this column, the so-called IFTT automation object, that's a quite important object because this object contains the configuration for the interface that we would like to test. So without going into much details, we just need to choose the proper automation object that contains all the rules that we will use for our test validation. So yeah, from the list inside the pop-up, I need to select one of the automation objects. So yeah, I think this one would be the proper one. So double click on the automation object. And now last but not least, we need to select the document number. So again, let me click on this button. And as you can see, we are now in a new window and it's called IFTT PIPO message selector. And from this window, we need to select some parameters based on which we would like to search for the real messages that are flying through the middleware. So as you
So
can see,
maybe just sorry. So maybe just to add one comment here. Yeah, what we are actually doing here, we are basically collecting now the messages from the PO that have communicated with old ECC boxes. Yeah, so let's say that the test environment is really the connection between our PO system and the messages that Michał will see in a minute. Those are the messages that creates those sales order in ECC. Yeah, so that's why we will be saving them as test cases.
yeah, of course, exactly. And yeah, as you can see, we've got here, we can define here some basic parameters that we will use for the searching for the messages, but I will not change it. So let's just have a look at all the messages that we'll find today. So let me just click on the execute button. And then you can see again a new window, and inside this new window we can see a list of all the messages that were processed in the time range that I selected. So you can see that in this column, for instance, you can see different times. So yeah, that's the time when the message was originally processed. And yeah, to create a new test case, we just need to select some of those messages. So let me select maybe some of the first messages and just click on transfer selected. So on this button. And once I click this button, you can see that we have now 10 new test cases. And yeah, just to make sure that it's created properly, I will click on the save button. And now at this point, you can see a new window that we are now creating the test cases. So it means that we download the messages directly to IFTT repository, and then we will have stored them in our repository locally. And actually that's also, so as you could see, I needed some seconds to create 10 new test cases, and each of these test case represents a real SAP PI message. So if I will select one of the test cases and click on the content button, you will see that this message contains both input and output. So let us maybe shortly have a look at the input. Yeah, so you can see, for instance, that this is an XML message. So that's a real message that was flying in the middleware.
Mhm. And what is also crucial is that Michał really did not have to log into the PO to download all those messages, but and in addition to this, IFTT automatically combined the PO message and the IDOC message with the sales order that was created in the ECC by using the purchase order number. Yeah, so yeah, once you define it once in the automation object, then you can really create hundreds of test cases within the seconds.
Yeah, exactly, and that's why the so-called automation object is a quite important thing, because here we define all the relevant configuration and rules. Okay, so as we can see, we have already 10 new test cases, and now of course we would like to execute them. So I think that's the easiest thing that we need to do, because I just need to click on this button. So let me do it. Click on execute all. And yeah, as you can see, IFTT is now processing all of those messages. And yeah, actually what we are doing at this point of time, we are virtualizing the external system. Then we are sending the messages directly to the middleware. So in this case, that's an SAP PI. Then SAP PI will process those messages, and finally we will send it to the target system. And in this case, that's an SAP S4HANA system. And yeah, on the SAP S4HANA side, we will create some business objects. And yeah, in the meantime, you can see that we got again a new window, and it's called as the test execution report. And what do we have here? So we have some basic information like date, time, username, and an environment. So it means the test environment. It means that we now send the messages to the test environment. So we executed the testing on this environment. I think what's very interesting, you can see that we needed 29 seconds to execute 12 different test cases. So I think it's a quite good time. And yeah, below, if I will scroll a little bit below, we can see the list of the test cases that were executed in this test run. So maybe let us have a look at some details regarding those test cases. So let me maybe click on the first line. Now we are inside test case details. And again, we can see in this window some basic information. So let us scroll below. Here we can see some information related to the test case, to the folder, automation object, and so on. Some variables from the reference message, so that those are the values from the original message, and those are the values from the current execution. But I think we will see it a little bit better below. Okay, so here we can see the it's called like XML comparison results, and we can see here two columns. On the left hand side, we can see the reference message. So that's the original message that we took from the SAP PO. So we can see that that's a message that will create an IDOC. And on the right hand side, we can see the message from the current execution. And as you can see, some of the values are marked in yellow. And it means that IFTT has detected a difference between the reference and the current execution. And if I will scroll below, you will see the whole message. And in case of any differences, we should see them immediately. So that's the first validation of the message. So let me hide it. And then below we can see the second validation, which may be even more important. So that's the SAP backend document validation. And here we can see again some tables with some nice colors. And what does it mean? If I will click on this button to show the reference document, you can see that we append a new row. A new line, sorry. And the first line represents the original, in this case, sales order, and the second line represents the sales order created now as part of the testing. And you can see most of the columns are marked in green, so it means that the values are equal, but some of the columns are marked in yellow. So it means that IFTT has detected some differences. So like for example, here, yeah, the original date was 25th and today is 22nd. So that's a small difference, but yeah, it's fine for us because it's not crucial for the testing. And the same we can do for some other tables. And if I will click maybe on the second button as well, then you can see here the name of the SAP table. So those are the technical names of the SAP tables, and I think you can imagine how much time we would need to go to each of the table and compare the sales order, the current sales order with the reference one. So probably we would need much more time to do it, and even it would be much easier to do a mistake, so to not see some of those small differences. So let me hide it, and maybe let's go back to the main screen of the test execution report, and let us check the one test case that it's failed. So again, the test case details, we can see marked in red that it's failed. So let us scroll below and let's check what actually is failed. So until now, everything is fine. Yeah, okay, here we can see actually a very small difference, but yeah, that might be crucial for the testing. So we can see that the quantity for the original message was 40 and for the current one is 50. So that's a very small difference, but yeah, we can imagine how much time or effort do we need to see such a small difference in a manual way. So it would be really hard, I think. So that's why this test case is failed. And if I will hide it, then probably in the SAP backend document validation, yeah, as well we can see this error. So that the quantity is different. So it's even in the item data. So it's very let's say deep. But even such small differences we can easily detect using IFTT. Yeah, so let me hide it and maybe go back. So of course it was a very very simple example where we just created a single sales order, and it was maybe not very complicated, but we can of course also connect the test cases together and test some more complex business scenario. But I hope that at least based on this short demo, yeah, you should be able to see the power of Int4 IFTT, and yeah, that it really really helps in the SAP S4HANA projects. Okay, so let's go back to the presentation.
Mhm. Yeah, so before maybe we will go to the Q&A, yeah, all the steps that and all the approaches, solutions that we discussed, they are quite unique and quite common, but we know that um, even each of the even each of the same approaches can have exactly the same or exactly the same solution, but sometimes the fact is that even that you face the let's say that you have some complex interfaces in your situation, the approach can be a little bit different, yeah, because you have some specific interfaces. So if you would like to see more and you would like to maybe read some specific use cases, you can visit int4.com website. You can even ask for a trial or a demo of Int4 FTT, where you can really check how it will behave in your environments. But of course, you can also get in touch with Michał or myself. So we will be more than happy to answer all of your questions. Yeah. So now if you have any questions, yeah, please raise them. So don't be shy. We will try to answer as in the best way as we can. And of course, if you prefer like a direct contact, we are available for you on LinkedIn, and also you can contact us via emails. Yeah. So
Yeah,
let's
exactly.
see.
So you are more than welcome to contact us directly, and we would be happy to discuss your projects and your challenges that you have, and yeah, we can together have a look how we can solve them.
Yeah. Uh, there is one question. How to maybe let's pin the question. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So the question is um, how we can determine which differences in test case results are acceptable or not. Yeah. So
Yeah. Would you like to answer this one, or shall
yeah,
I?
yeah, sure, I can take it. So when Michał was presenting IFTT, yeah, you could see that in the XML comparisons, yeah, the input and sorry, the output from the original one and the output from the tested ones, they have different colors, and whenever there was a difference that was acceptable, yeah, so let's say the timestamp or the date or even some not important value, those were marked in orange. And for that you can really define a specific nodes that you want to use. And in terms of the DB validation on the backend side, the same colors were used, but yeah, you could see them down below, so you can really define from which tables what fields I mean, whenever there is a difference, yeah, you can determine whether this difference should fail the test case or whether it's acceptable difference.
Yeah, exactly. And if maybe I can just add a small point to that. So that's in general a one-time action. So once we define all of the validations and we say which differences are fine for us and which not, then we can reuse it, of course, as many times we want. So we don't need to do it each time we are creating a new test case or we are testing a new interface. We can just reuse already existing automation objects and the rules that we configured here.
Mhm. Okay, I believe that there are no other questions. So,
Yeah.
yeah, let us show you one more time how you can contact us. So, if under the shower you will came up to another question, yeah, please feel free to ping us, and we'd like to really thank you for your time. Hopefully that was insightful for you, and you got something after this webinar. So thank you.
Yeah, many thanks for your time, for the participation, and hope to see you soon again. Bye.
Bye bye.